The Lady of Felake. Chapter E. Whispers beneath the waters. Felake was quiet. Not silent, never silent. There were always the sounds of the wind gliding across the surface, the chirping of unseen birds, and the occasional plop of fish rising to kiss the surface. But there was a stillness to it, an unnatural calm, as if the very waters held their breath in anticipation. In the heart of this mysterious lake, hidden deep within the forest of ancient Britain, legends said a lady lived beneath the surface. Not a woman of flesh and blood, but something older, something born of magic and moonlight. Few dared to row their boats too far from the shore, and those who did spoke of strange things, glowing lights beneath the water, voices echo without source, and the haunting image of a woman in white, just beneath the ripples, watching. Some said she was a ghost. Others whispered she was a goddess. The druid, long before the age of kings, had simply called her Nimue, the Lady of Felake. Chapter 2. A Knight's Quest. It was not long after young Arthur had pulled the sword from the stone that rumors of rebellion stirred in the north. Though still barely a man, Arthur needed allies and arms. His old sword, though sturdy, was not worthy of a king. Merlin, the ever-watchful mage, knew where to go. One misty morning, before dawn had painted the sky with gold, he led Arthur into the ancient forest of Broceliande. They walked without speaking, branches parting for them like they knew who passed through. At the lake's edge, Arthur hesitated. "There is someone you must meet," Merlin said. And then, without warning, the lake shimmered. Rays of silver light broke through the mist. From the center of the lake, a hand rose, graceful, pale, and unshaking. In its grip was a sword, gleaming with enchantment, untouched by rust or time. As Arthur stepped forward, the surface rippled, and from beneath it rose a woman, clothed in blue and white robes that seemed woven from water itself. Her hair floated around her like a halo, and her eyes shimmered with knowledge beyond the mortal realm. "I am Nimue," she said, her voice like the wind on water. "And this is Excalibur." Chapter 3. The Preach of Power. Arthur took the sword. The moment his hand wrapped around the hilt, a warmth spread through him, a surge of strength, of purpose. Excalibur was not just a weapon, it was a promise. Of justice, of destiny. But magic never comes freely. Nimue smiled, though her eye did not. "You may keep the sword until your kingdom no longer serves the land. When that time comes, the sword must return to the waters, and so shall your fate." Arthur nodded, too young to understand the weight of her words. As she and Merlin disappeared into the trees on Cemore, Nimue watched, her figure fading slowly back into the depths. She had seen many kings rise and fall. But something about Arthur made her linger a little longer, watching the ripples fade. Chapter EV, The Quiet Watcher. Through years of war, alliances, betrayal, and glory, the Lady of Felake remained hidden beneath her waters. She watched Arthur build Camelot. She watched the round table take shape, watched Lancelot's oath and Guinevere's guts, watched the seeds of greatness, and the roots of downfall. Sometimes, she whispered into the dreams of druid and knights. Sometimes, when the moon was high and full, those brave enough to stand by the lake claimed to hear her voice in the wind. "Protect the land, protect the king." But as time passed, the whispers grew faint. Men built towers of stone and walls of pride. They forgot the old gods. They forgot the lakes, the forest, the magic. But Nimue remembered, and she waited. Chapter V, The Sword Returns. Years later, as Arthur lay dying on the battlefield of Camlan, pierced by betrayal and steel, he called to his last loyal knight. "Take Excalibur," he gasped, "and return it to the lake." The knight hesitated, but obeyed. He rode through the dark night, carrying the sword wrapped in linen, as if trying to protect it from the end it knew was coming. At the lake, he stood in silence, unsure. Then, with a final breath, he threw the sword across the still water. It spun once, twice, and from the depths rose the same pale hand, catching it effortlessly before sinking back beneath the surface. The knight knelt, and somewhere far away, Arthur's soul began its journey to Avalon. Chapter V, Eternal Waters. To this day, they say the lady still waits beneath the lake. When Britain faces its darkest hour, when the world forgets stories and its soul, she will rise again. Perhaps to give the sword to another. Perhaps to remind us that magic, destiny, and sacrifice are real. But until then, she watches. Always. So if you find yourself at a lonely lake, when the mist cures low and the world seems still, listen. You just might hear her calling. Lente ingrandimento verso sinistra discussion questions, what does Excalibur symbolize in the legend?